Loading live. All right, thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully you caught Coach Farashidyan's podcast right before this. If not, you can replay it on the Virtual Throws Conference channel anytime. It was a great presentation. I highly recommend you check it out. We have Coach Lance Deal here with us today. Lance is an Olympic silver medalist, four-time Olympian, American record holder in the hammer, world record holder in the weight throw, the former throws coach at the University of Oregon, and a member of the National Track and Field Hall of Fame. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of stuff there, but we're super glad to have you on, and excited to hear what you have to say about coaching, about track and field, and about the hammer throw. So welcome, Coach.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah. I suppose we'll dive right in. I guess before we get going, big thanks to Rob the Sorcerer, who is kind of our connection, and how we got a hold of you, Coach. And thank you to National Throws Coaches Association and MF Athletic for everything they're doing to help put this on and help advertise it and get the word out, and just generally for everything that Rob and those organizations do for throwing in the U.S. And beyond. So big thank you there, and excited to talk with you guys. And we'll kind of start picking your brain a little bit, Coach.
Okay.
So I know you didn't start out as a hammer thrower. You're a discus thrower, and a lefty at that. How did you find the hammer throw?
I started out as a wee baby. Then I grew.
I can't spend the whole hour laughing.
Oh, I'll be just then forever. Don't you know? Yeah, we're going to be serious today. So I actually started out as a baseball player. That was my first love. I love baseball. I was a really good hitter because I was left-handed, but I'm right-eye dominant. And I won't get into the reasons that I ended up not doing that, but the big one was sophomore year. So I ended up, so I did football and wrestling, and so did my brother. And my brother was really good. He was All-American wrestling, All-American football. No, he wasn't All-American. He's all state on both sides of the football. Undefeated his last 2 years of wrestling, had every single school record in our high school. And I started thinking, well, if I'm going to be better than my brother, I better do something else. Besides, wrestling's hard. It's really hard. And so I went off track. And my first meet, Scottsbluff, Nebraska, it was actually, the sun was actually shining, and there was the wind wasn't blowing 60 miles an hour like it does in Casper, Wyoming. And the sun glinting off the discus, and I almost won my first meet with a throw of 138 feet, and got second to my teammate, and I was stuck. And then then later on in the meet, the same day when it was sunny and warm, we actually just sat on the high jump pit and watched the girls, and so I'm in. That's it. I'm done. This. You don't want to put this plastic thing on your head and hitting people and hustling and, getting on the wrestling mat. No, scroll. It's better. It's better that way. And so, but I still played football, and I was really good. I was an All-American. I was an All-American wrestler. And I wasn't that great in track nationally, but for you historians or old guys like Rob, if you think back about the discus throw in the mid 70s to mid 80s, there was just this massive collection of really, really good discus throwers. And so, as an example, in 1984, my senior year in college, I was 27th in the country with a throw of 61.62 or 2.022. And so I got 8th at nationals with 2.022, 8th place at NC2As. Are you kidding me? I think before that, the most it ever been is 3 or 4. 2 or 3 years after, the guy, I think it was it Banich, The guy from UCLA won at 192. I got 8th at 202. It's time to change. Okay. So, as I always tell people, how to get really good at something, first pick what you love. And generally there's more than one thing, and then pick what you're good at and then do it a lot. So I love throwing. I know I did. I'd pick up heavy things and throw them as far as I could before I even knew that there was a thing called a discus. I was just big rocks at the lake. And so love the discus. Shot was hard. I was one of these 6'2", 225 high school kids who was pretty good with a 12. And you get to the 16 and just like punching a wall every time you throw it. Blew my elbow, ruined my knee because I was a glider. And so discus, but then I'm left-handed, and so what am I going to do? Picked up the hammer, was, decent. It was hard starting because we didn't know anything about it. Did a spring break trip in my sophomore year. Went out to Palo Alto, met Stuart Ogilvie for the first time. My throw jumped from 130 to 180 in like 15 minutes of working with Stuart. And so then just kind of continued on, finished my college career as a shot and discus thrower, All-American in the discus, made the national meet in the hammer, but didn't make the final. And came out here. I was going to spend 2 weeks here learning what I could about the hammer from Stuart. And I got stuck through 20 feet farther in 2 weeks and decided, well, maybe I'm a hammer thrower. So that's it there. How's that?
No, that's great.
That's a long version to a really short possible answer.
No, that's fantastic. That's what podcasts are all about. And so how did you first make the connection with Stuart Ogilvie, and then could you describe your relationship with who became your longtime coach?
No, you've gotten into it. Yeah. Okay, this lasts a day, right? We're in a telethon, right? Well, my first connection was with a woman named Carol Cady, who was the longtime American record holder in the discus, and she went to Stanford. And so on that spring break trip, she introduced us. And then later, my senior year, my coach had called or had met Stuart at a meet and just walked up to him and said, "Hey, I got a 200-foot discus, left-handed discus thrower. Will you work with him in the hammer?" And at the time, he was the national throws coach, the national hammer coach. And so he kind of had to let me come to Eugene for a little while. And he promised me that I could sleep on the couch in the weight room, which I never had to do other than naps. It was a good couch, man. It was a really good couch. But anyway, ran into a very recently made friend, stayed with him for a little while, stayed with a friend of his, and then met the woman that eventually is now my wife. And everything just took off. Started throwing far, and it was great. Got stuck in the mud, still here.
Awesome. And, before we kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the hammer throw, would you took to the hammer, could you walk us through the 1996 Olympic hammer competition and how that played out?
Yeah. There was a whole bunch of guys there that threw really far, and I wasn't one of them for a long time. So I don't know how far do you want me to get into this thing?
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
It's interesting. First of all, there were 80,000 people in the stands.
Well, not quite, because it was early. So it grew from maybe 10 to 60 or so while I was throwing. So, all right. So that gives me a good, thank you. That gives me a good starting point. So as with anything, it's not that day. It's everything before it. Yeah. Right. So I hadn't thrown over 80 meters the previous year. So it'd been 2 years since I threw over 80 meters. And, but I was throwing really far in practice. And so I go out qualifying, horrible trials. I remember, is anybody watching that thing on the Bulls, the Last Dance thing? Have you seen that?
Finished it last night.
We're in the middle of that. And so I keep thinking about this 96 trials when they interviewed. I won like with 74 meters, 76 meters or something like that. I don't know what it was. It was horrible meet. And I remember saying, well, if the Bulls can win ugly, I guess so can I. So I was nervous about the ring. It was an insert, which pisses me off. I don't like inserts. And then they had the camera right on the wires, one that gets right down. Rob fell.
Okay.
Right, right down on the field, and it was low. And I kept calling people. I think Bruce Caldwell maybe was part of the deal. I can't remember, but I got a hold of somebody that was really involved, and I said, "Look it. This thing's really low. You guys got to do something. We're throwing way the hell up there." And so, everybody just wrote it, and I would have too. He's just being nervous, and he's a head case, and blah, 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 blah. Sure enough, man, one of the javelin throwers hit it. One of the female javelin throwers hit that camera. When I told you. So I'm all worried about everything. And I get in the qualifying round. First throw, I don't know. Second throw, by the end of the second round, because I was in the second flight, I knew that I was in the final, but not like a 76-meter throw. So I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to take my third throw just to kind of get the feel, and I'm starting to feel pretty good. So I throw 78 meters, and it was close to a foul. It was not a foul. I'm here to say it wasn't a foul, but they kept showing it over and over and over again, and I led qualifying. Now some people are going to say there's no curse about you never want to lead the qualifying round. I'm not going to go there. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I really wish I hadn't have thrown 78 meters. I wish I'd either thrown 77, 90 and gotten second in qualifying, or 83 meters and just got it over with. So anyway, so go home, doing everything fine. Bomb blows up in Centennial Park. I'm not paying much attention to that. I'm kind of focused. And so go out the day of, and everything's fine. It's good weather. And I'm warming up. I'm feeling pretty good. And so then the theme song was the 2001 theme song, right? So everybody lined up, and I'm 10th in the order, and they start playing this thing. It's like, dawn, 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 boom, 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 boom. I'm just going out of my skin, right? So finally, introducing everybody, and they get number 10. I can't hear what they say. The second they say from U.S., you can't hear yourself think. So it just blew all my circuits. So I get, but I'm working on it. I've been doing some mental stuff. It's all good. And so I expected, the game plan is that at least two people were going to be over 80 meters in their first round. Just that's the way they threw. And so I'm 10th in the order. Everybody's already thrown, except for, a couple of guys that, they're, I don't know, 67 to 68 or 77, 78 guys. But all big guys, Heinz Weiss, Balaj, Konovalov, Ostapkov, they're all gone. They've all thrown. And nobody's over 80. I'm going, I can win this thing right now. back up once. My game plan was throw 78 my first throw, throw 83 my second throw. It's well within capabilities of what I've been training. So, well, if I throw 80 meters, I can win it right now. Oh man, I think that was a sector foul, and and it was a short sector foul. It was like 74 meters. And then it's like, okay, it's okay, just one throw. Only takes one throw. And that's the mental for the whole time. One throw, only throw. Which one's important? Not the one that you just threw, not the one that's coming up later, the one right now. So, get in the ring the second one. Okay, here we go. It's all right. It's all right. It's decent. You know, I knew that it wasn't like earth crushing. And I look down and I'm in the ring and you can't see what my foot's doing, but literally, you know, my foot's along the edge of the ring like this. And I don't know why I did it, but I went, boop, just touched the ring, just with my toe. I didn't have to do it. I could have fought and stayed in, but I'm just gonna go. And so foot foul. So no, but it's okay. It's okay. One throw. It only takes one throw. I've done it before. Only one throw. So I get in for my third throw, and I'm doing okay. So bang! Had a great throw, but I look, you know, maybe. And so I look over there, and it's like 76.94. Ranked 9. So the screen says deal USA 76.94, ranked 9. I'm out. 9th place at the Olympics. So I go and I take my glove off, take my shoes off, take my shirt off, and got my t-shirt on still. Trying really, really hard not to cry. And then the announcer comes on. Bob Hirsch comes on the loudspeaker. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, in the case of a world championship or Olympic competition, there are no tiebreakers. There will be 9 going to the final in the hammer. So I look over at the officials, and they're all getting ready to start the finals, right? They're dispersing away from the computer. All of a sudden, they all just glom right back onto the computer. Oh, shit. Is this true? So I start, you know, tentatively putting my stuff on, my shoes, and I look down into my bag, and I brought 2 pairs of shoes. One of them were the safe ones that were a little bit rubbery and had a little bit better traction, and the other ones were the plastic ones. And if you were throwing in 95, 96, it's when Nike came out with their new rotational, and thanks to Randy Heisler, the bottom was hard plastic. There was no rubber about it. It was just fast. And so I looked down into my bag, just went, you know what? Screw it. Put on the fast ones. So I put on the fast shoes. And I mean, you literally slip on the concrete when you're walking on these things. Didn't have to. So then pop, up pops my name, first throw. Because of course I'm 9th, so I'm the first thrower. So I don't have time to tape up. So I just throw my glove on, hit the cage, and nothing throw. Just scrape, the handle scrapes the cage. It's a fair throw, but the handle scrapes the cage. So now, okay, get my tape back on, and okay, here we go. I got another shot. And so 5th throw, I move into 8th place proper. I break that tie. And I think it was Scruletti. I think was it the Italian? An Italian or a Frenchman? Anyway, so then, and I'm doing all of my mental stuff, which we're not going to get into a lot of, but it's all this crazy stuff that's going on. And I'm beating up trash cans and throwing crap around. And so the other thing that I do is I try to leave the arena. So what you have to do to leave the arena to go to the bathroom at the Olympics is you have to go up to one of the marshals and, hey, please, sir, will you take me to the bathroom? So here's all these gigantic hammer throwers. Most of them are really not very attractive. and none of them like me, and they really, really don't want me to do well. And I'm in the middle of them, can I go to the bathroom, please? So he takes me off the field, and I get in and I mostly it's just to get off the track, just to get out of that for a minute, clear my head. So I go to the bathroom, and I'm coming back out into the sunshine, and I look over, and here's my wife Nancy, ground level, right on the other side of the fence. Now apparently, so she had been all the way on the other side of the stadium. So she had walked, and this is the day after the bomb. So security was nuts. She walks through all the way around the stadium, and there's a kind of a waste walkway halfway up, and there's big security. And those of you that know my wife can imagine her doing this. And if you don't, I'll just say that she's fairly, I don't know what you call it. If she wants something, she gets it. So she goes, that's my husband, and I'm going down there. The whole, I guess, all the people around her, all the crowd just start cheering. Yeah, let her go, let her go. So she comes down onto the track level, across the fence, and I see her, and I look at her, and I just go. And so now we got to go back to 1985. My second meet here, third week or so here. I just met Nancy. And I had said to her, I'm really, the goal is I want to throw 70 meters, right? Because I came here, I was throwing 205. And then after 2 weeks, I threw 224. And, so 70 meters is the goal for American hammer throwers, right? So I tell her this. And so we're right in the middle of a meet. Everybody's quiet. And she yells out, come on, 70 meters. She doesn't know track. So after the meet, it's like, hey, thanks for being there. And listen, by the way, you never talk about distance during a track meet. Oh, okay. So now, 11 years later, inside she's thinking, I know what he means. It's one throw, only throw. I got this. What I see is, you know how to throw far. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I know how to throw far. So I go in, and I remember thinking, all right, little buddy, you're going for a ride. And just got it together enough to get the 8112s. And later on, I was really sore the next day. And I mentioned that to Nancy, and she goes, well, that's what you get for pulling it so far out of the toilet. So, yeah, that 4 inches that I missed the gold by, yeah, I kind of wish I'd have got that. But, doing what I did, given the mess that I put myself in, I'm still pretty proud of that.
Very, very cool. And Cameron, an awesome intro here, and thanks for sharing. You got to travel, you got to kind of go all over the place. Who are some competitors or other hammer throwers that you learned from or really, drew inspiration from as an athlete?
I really feel like being a smartass.
That's allowed.
I didn't learn nothing from nobody. I did it all myself. I think you learn things, whether in a positive way or a negative way, if you're doing it right, from kind of anybody that you run into. And what I think for me, the best way to talk about this without talking about individuals, because then you forget somebody, and then the other people are going to be mad at you. And what I found later, and I wish I'd have learned it earlier in my career, but what I found out, what I realized later, and actually was able to absorb and utilize and sort of internalize it, the collective energy of the group. And yeah, there's some people that don't have the good motives, but who cares? You know, they're out, you're doing the same thing, and everybody's trying as hard as they can. And so if you let it, that's a really good way to gain energy and to gain a good feeling about the competition and a good feeling about. I was so competitive that I didn't like hang out with a lot of the throwers, and I didn't, I never did anything in connection with the meet. I'd go to a meet, I'd go to the hotel, I'd go to the track, I'd throw, I'd go back to the hotel and wait for the plane. And so the rare times when we were able to do that, and there were some, and I have to actually credit Judd Logan, because Judd was really good at, collecting people. And we had some pretty good after meet meetings with the Russians and the Finns and, some of these guys. I actually have a picture of me and Sergei Litvinov in Seoul watching TV of the first shuttle launch. So that's kind of cool. But other than that, you just, I really enjoyed my time with Koji at the very end, Koji Murafushi at the very end of my career. We spent a lot of time in 2000 hanging out on the going to meets, and of course, great friends still with Kevin McMahon, who in my opinion is the best hammer thrower in the world, pound for pound ever. And all my training partners, that was just such a, and here we go. I'm going to try to name them, and I'm going to forget somebody, and they're going to be pissed. So I got here, and in '85, John McArdle, Greg Gassner, and Dave Chesborough got here, and John McArdle was here. We went home for the summer in fall of '85. Gassner and Chesborough were here. Mike Fritchman came in. Brian Masterson, who's still a great friend. Well, they're all still great friends. Just some of them I see more than others. Jim Driscoll, and then of course Ken Flax was at Oregon when I came, and he trained with the group, but wasn't here for very long after college. Scott McGee, Steve Deering, Ian Maplethorpe would come through. Travis Nutter was my training partner at the very end. Oh man, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm forgetting somebody, and they're going to yell at me. Anyway, all those guys, we had a really good group, and we got a lot of stuff done at the direction of Stuart Toger. And I believe that Adam Kriz was another one. I believe that we revolutionized hammer throwing. We did things that nobody's ever done before.
That might be a great place to pivot into kind of like, I know, hammer throwing, and training, and all that. What were some of those things that you're doing as an athlete training, or what is your philosophy on kind of training, and how do you approach training, as an athlete, or, later as a coach? Like, what are some of those most important pieces for the hammer throw?
So, this is great. And I will say, here's what I invite everybody to do. And I do this at all my clinics. When I start talking, I say, listen to all of this stuff. I'm not saying this is the right thing. It was right for me. It was right for us. I believe it is. But if you don't shut me off. right? So what I say is listen in the Zen people call it, listen with a child's mind, right? And the person that was the best at this was Koji Murafushi. So here comes Koji, and he's thrown over 80 meters. He's the best thrower, the best up-and-coming thrower around. What are they, number one with a bullet. He's going up 2 meters a year. He's got the world by the tail. He comes here and he starts training with Stuart 10 days out of every month before Athens. And you would think that he would come and just sort of cherry pick. Well, let's see. No, I do this. And you say this, but maybe I'm going to change that to that. He came in and completely immersed himself in our system. It takes such strength to be able to do that. So I'll just ask you for the next 30 minutes or however long we're doing it. If I say something that seems crazy to you, just don't shut it off. Just listen with an open mind. You don't have to do it. I don't care. Right? But if it'll help you as a thrower, it'll help you as a coach with your athletes, that's all I want to do. I'm not trying to prove that any way's right. Here's kind of stuff that we did and that I've observed as a college coach, because Stuart was never really a college coach. Stuart coached us and made, he made his living in part coaching at Oregon. He's a tremendous coach. Please don't get me wrong. He's the best coach in the world. But he didn't get the college system. He didn't ever completely accept the college system. It's a wrong system. It's a fallible system, and I believe that too. But because I was close enough to it, and I'm enough of a wishy-washy fence straddler, that I feel like I did some of the things to help me live more successfully in the college system than Stuart did. So anyway, what are the things? So do you want me to do what are the things that I see are doing wrong, or people are doing wrong, or what? I'm going to talk about my basic tenets.
That's perfect place to start. Yeah.
So here's and Brandon and Rob, if you see questions, just interrupt. Okay. If somebody has a specific question about that, just interrupt. Or if there's some stuff, is there anything on the YouTube thing that's directly asking about technique?
Yeah, we've got.
Just so I know kind of where to start.
Yeah, where did that go? We have somebody asking, what are some of your favorite cues to teach connection in the hammer? That was the first one we got.
Okay, that's a good one. What else? I don't have a pen.
We got like basic, like what are your, if you had to boil the hammer down to 3 things you have to do well, what would they be?
Good question. That's it. That's all there is 3. There's only maybe 2.
All right, let's start there.
Okay. Posture and timing. Those are the 2. Posture and timing. Now, how are you going to get there? What's the posture? What's the timing? Okay. So posture is, and I'm not forgetting about the connection question. Posture is a normal athletic posture. And I learned it in wrestling, and other people learn it, if they've got a good coach in football, or in wrestling. It's not that one with your butt out, your back all arched. Right? It's not that natural posture, just that. What do you do naturally? Right? How do you do a squat, a snatch? Natural posture. Right? Things line up in a natural way. Stuart used to talk a lot about little kids. And he would mention that you ask a little kid to pick something up that's in between their feet. Right? They just do that. They don't do what we do now and do all this stuff, right? They just squat down and pick the thing up, right? So somewhere in that range is where we're throwing from. Now, the trick is we got something pulling on us, right? So we have to counteract that weight by going backwards a little bit. It's not as much as you think it is. Okay? If you think about, and you guys, hammer throwers are smart. You can probably all do math. Probably all took physics somewhere along the line. If you've got a 260-pound mass opposing a 16-pound mass 8 feet away, how much are you going to have to move to make that a balanced system? Part of it depends on how fast the ball's going, how much centripetal force there is, right? And then as an individual, it depends on how heavy you are. Depends if you're man or woman. Women, you got a 4 kilo thing, an 8.8 pound thing, so it's less. So you see guys like Koji that are like, wah, right? Well, he weighs 215 pounds for crying out loud, right? And he's throwing 84 meters. So obviously, me throwing 82 at 255, I'm not going to have to offset as much. We call it sit back, right? The ball comes through zero, and you sit back away from it. It's important to note, and that's specific. We're not going to get there. So yeah, natural athletic posture, period. So anatomical position, everything's facing forward, right? Your toes are facing forward, your shoulders are square, your head's square on your spine, right? So there, let's just stay there. Well, but what if I really want to get going? What if I really have to get that ball accelerate? Everybody knows that's wrong now, right? When Stuart came in the 80s, the East Coast guys, newspaper, and Rob, you might know this one, newspaper under your arm and a penny between your butt cheeks, and if either one falls, you're doing it wrong. They actually taught that. So no, let's stay like this, okay? So how do we stay like that? And I'm going to go back and forth here. If you see questions, Brandon, fire them out.
Yep.
So how do you stay there? And this goes to the connection with the ball thing. So the connection of the ball goes from the ball up the wire, through your hand, around your shoulders, and into your spine. Okay, that's the connection. Then it's down your spine into the ground on hopefully both feet. Both feet's a lot. One foot. Can anybody squat more with one leg than they can, or clean more with one leg than they can two?
Not that I know of.
We try all the time in the hammer. We try to get over that front leg and just crank it around. Right, now let's try to stay on both feet. Okay, to stay on both feet, you have to do something with balance that, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but what I'm seeing is, and what I'm hearing from some of the language is that people are trying to get over that leg. For me, it's my right leg. For everybody else, it's their left leg. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what they're saying, but I'm seeing and hearing people thinking that they're going to get all the force on that front leg, and that's their axis of pivot. That's not true. The axis of pivot is somewhere in between your feet. It's a little bit closer to your back foot. My left foot, everybody else's right foot. Okay? Here's the... I'm just gonna go, and I'm sorry if I people, if I confuse people, because it's not a very clear presentation. But I'm gonna go back and forth. So the best example that I can think of, the best analogy that I can think of about where you balance is water skiing. And I never skied on one ski, but I can imagine it, and I can look at people skiing on one ski. And if you're out there and you can ski on one ski, what happens if you get on your front foot? You get wet and you can't turn. How do you turn in water skiing? You get back on that back foot and you're holding on to the rope, and you just kind of lean away from it, right? You don't go into it. You don't go toward the boat. You go away from the boat, right? So it's the same thing. So if you're turning in the hammer and you're on this front, and the other example is the other throws, the shot and the discus, right? As you're coming through the center of the ring in the shot and the discus, right? If you're here, you have to be on that leg before you go over the top, block out, and extend, right? If you go through the center and you drop right onto there, you can't turn this foot. You have to have weight on the foot that has to turn, okay? Now, the difference is, well, okay, so you're shifting over in the shot. Yeah, but you only do that when you're ready to let go of the implement. So every turn is not a throw in the hammer. You can't sell out. Javelin, just run down as hard as you can, put your foot out in front of you and hope you don't blow something up, right? We can't do that. We have to do it 5 times. So that's why. So you have to concentrate a little bit on that balance point. And that balance point is a little bit different for different people. And it changes as you get better. So initially, you really have to be on that back leg. You really have to find that. For me, it was my left foot and my left hand, the forehand hit in tennis, right? You have to have that. And remember, you can't sell out and go to the block leg until the end. But by then you don't need to because the ball is already gone. So, and then as you get better and better, so like if you look at, if anybody's seen my throw in Knoxville, my first American record, the 8250, I've got a knee wrap on my knee. My knee wasn't hurt. It had for a couple of weeks because we slow down, Lance. So going into 94, is it 94? I threw over 80. I threw 81 in 92. I didn't throw farther in 93. And then so going into 94, we knew I was ready to throw far again. And so we were shifting things around. And so we did start feeling a little bit more weight on that toe turn. And it hurt my knee for a while. By the time we got to Knoxville, it had all resolved itself. But I really liked that kinesthetic reminder. So I had that knee sleeve on just so I could feel my knee and just in the toe turn, right? When you're going slow and you can afford to, get a little bit out here, right? Get a little bit out over this thing, but really slow. And I was an 81 meter hammer thrower. Wouldn't have thought about doing that. Never thought about teaching anybody that at a 65 to 75 meter throw. You have to have more balance, unless the guy's a kinesthetic freak or the girl's a kinesthetic freak. But the problem is you get out there and look at we used to look at the old Finns, Tiana and those guys, and they get way out there and they think that they're going to come back into the sit position where the ball can actually work in between your feet. But they never do. They can't. It's really, really hard to do. Every once in a while, somebody does something kind of like it, but it's not consistent. At the end of the day, you got to be consistent because you got to get a tiny little hole in the cage. So don't go out over the front of that. The ball goes out there. You're resisting the weight. You got we talk about the hard heel. As you're throwing this ball out to 90, right? It's a hard heel. Probably the force plates say that there's more weight on this foot, but the balance is back here. Okay, the balance is in between your feet, right in front of the back foot of your water ski. Okay, so where does the power happen? Power happens in between the feet. Doesn't really matter where. Somewhere between where your feet are. Right, somewhere between here and here. Same question. Does anybody clean more here than they do here, or snatch more? No, probably not. This is where you're strong. This is where you want the resultant force. Okay? This is where you sit back on the ball. This is where the ball goes the fastest. So let's talk about that a little bit. So there's a principle, and hopefully you've all heard it, Um, it's called the pendulum principle. This was the basis of all of our stuff, was pendulum motion. I wish I don't have any props. So I'm going to walk around a little bit. I'm going to talk and see if I can find a prop. So pendulum motion is a natural phenomenon. It's, the grandfather clock, the weight on the grandfather clock, right? That sort of stuff. And it's actually the equation for it, I believe, and you smart physics guys are gonna teach me wrong, but I think it's the same as the equation for a spring. It's a degrading function. So it starts, and if you just leave it, it gradually gets smaller and smaller. We're not going to talk about that. I was just wasting time. So how does a pendulum work, and how can you accelerate how can you affect the pendulum? So we've basically got a hammer here. Tell me if you can't see. And so the hammer's floppy, right? Because you got nothing. So it's on a wire, so there's really not much you can do with it, right? But so can you? We got to make this thing go around like this, right? So how can you do that? So you can kind of twist on it. You can grab the handle and twist it like that, right? But that's really hard. That's not going to get much force going. So that let's decide we can't just move the handle like this and move the ball much. So then we can go side to side. Right, so let's see if you can see the timing of this. Tick, 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 tick. Slows down, doesn't it? A little bit. Hopefully you can see that and hear that. So that doesn't work. You can go. What if we go toward the ball? Tick, 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 tick. Oh, that really slows down. I can only do it once. I got stairs there. Maybe if I could film it going down the stairs. But you get that if you drop, if you go toward the ball, it slows down, right? So what if you go away from the ball? Tick, 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 tick. It doesn't really get much faster, does it? But it gets a lot bigger. Okay, remember that point. Doesn't get much faster, but it gets a lot bigger. So when you're throwing and you give to the ball, or you shift sideways, right? Or you can give to the ball, if I'm throwing that way, you give to the ball in the direction of the throw, you're slowing it down, right? You're trying to stay long, but you're not really. They've done the work. The biomechanic, a guy named Brian Castor at Western Oregon was a big hammer guy. And he did the work proving that a hammer position like this has exactly the same effective radius as a hammer position like this. Because you're just throwing your butt back and moving your big mass more than you're moving the hammer. So let's just stay like this in an athletic position that we can do something with, okay? Your brain works better, your balance mechanisms work better, everything works better if you're in an athletic position. We're athletes, we're humans, we can't get rid of that, okay? So if you give to the ball, if you move sideways with the ball, sort of the XY plane, right? This way and that way, you're slowing it down. If you give to it in the Z plane, right? If you go up and down with it, you're slowing down the ball. So keep in mind we're talking about posture and timing. And this is the place where they come together, is in the pendulum motion and how you affect the pendulum motion. So Matella, I'm gonna tell a funny analogy. I don't know if it makes sense anymore. It used to. It makes a lot of sense. Still does to me. Maybe it doesn't. So back in the days of Orville and Wilbur, or the barnstormers in these old planes made out of wood and canvas, and they're really slow, and they got these cables that run the ailerons and the rudders and everything, and they move really slow. Big movements to control them, and they move really slow. Okay. Fast forward to '85, I go visit my coach's brother, who's in my college coach, Mike Carrigan, who got me into this crazy thing and kept me in it for so long. Brother flew F4s in the reserves, and he was constantly doing this stuff, sitting at the dinner table, doing little, and apparently it looked like craziness, like it does on the screen right here. But there's these sequences that pilots have to do on the stick to make the rolls and the spins and all this stuff. I don't know anything about it, but there were teeny tiny movements because the stick only moved that far. Well, soon after that, the F-16, the stick doesn't even move. It's just pressure sensitive. And then, was it the F-18 or something? Suddenly you had to have a computer to anticipate the pilot's moves, or it spun out and blew up, right? So the human couldn't fly it anymore. It's too fast for a human. Point is, and I've probably got the numbers wrong, and please, if you're a fighter, I'm sorry. If you're a aeronautics engineer, you're just a fan. I don't know that much about it, but that's what I remember. But the point is, to make the thing go faster, you had to make smaller movements. Okay. Now I'm going to get weird. So then I live in the world of Zen paradoxes. So if you know anything about Zen stuff, there's 3 paradoxes. I can only remember 2 of the real ones. The first one is in stillness, there's movement. And the other one is in weakness, there's strength. And I don't know the other one, so I made it up. And I say you got to slow down to speed up. So what you got to do is you have to stay in the middle. Okay. There's 3 centers in the hammer. There's the up and down center. There's the XY center, front, back, side, side. Okay. And then there's the rotational center. We just got to stay real close to all those. But we have to cheat them to make it work, to accelerate it. But you can't cheat too much. You can't go back to the Kitty Hawk, right? You have to think about the F4. You have to be an F4. So almost got to fly in one, but I was too heavy. My coach's brother said, well, we could probably find a flight suit to fit you. And your legs are pretty big, but they make extenders for the thigh belts. And you're pretty tall waisted, but you could probably fit into the cockpit. But the capacity of the ejector seat's 240, and you're 250 plus 40 pounds of gear. It never happened, but if we ejected, the tail would cut you in half. So let's just watch him take off. So anyway, side, front, back, up, down, rotation. That's the posture. Now, how do you do that inside of a pendulum? So the hammer and the orbit of the hammer already dictates all of that. If you listen to the rhythm of the ball, the thing to remember is the first turn is just another wind. If you're a 4-turner, 3-turners, you got to put some gas on it. But if you're a 4-turner, the first turn is just another wind. And the finish is just another turn. So basically, they're all just winds. If you look again at that 94 video, what I was literally doing in my mind was counting to 7. That's all I did on that throw. Remember, the finish counts. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so you're just doing 7 winds, right? So it's really important to be in the center during the winds. It's important not to snatch stuff around. Just stand there and wind the thing around your head. Don't do anything special. You know, don't try to get your head out of the way. Lift your hands up, for Christ's sake. You got shoulders, right? So just here. It's got to be big, and the better you get, the better it is to be big. Now we had a very unique wind. I understand that. Our wind was patterned after the Scottish hammer, Scots hammer, where you put cleats in the ground and you swing the thing around as hard as you can, let go. But that created the pendulum. First of all, we did a fairly, when we first started, man, we had a vertical wind. It was completely vertical here, and then we'd flatten it out. That changed a little bit, but the ideal is the vertical pendulum has the most energy in it. How to translate that into the real world is another thing, right? You have to get some sort of orbit, okay? But if you think about, so if you're hitting the bottom of the pendulum, the fastest part is right between your feet. And so it doesn't throw anything off. If you hit the back of the pendulum here, the bottom of the pendulum here, the strength of the throw, you're gonna lean this way. So you have to counteract the hammer. If you put it too far this way, great, you're staying on your left leg, or my left leg, your right leg. There's not really much you can do with it, right? It's really hard to accelerate there, okay? Here you can pull it. You can accelerate it the wrong way, right? But here you can't accelerate it at all. You got to wait for it to drag you around, which is what you do ultimately, but you don't do it as an exaggeration, okay? So if you just stand in the middle and let the force go here in front of you, you can find a center within that system, right? The cue is taking your lead hand, my right hand, your left hand, and pushing it straight up in front of your face. Okay, don't let your hands, don't wind over to here. Okay, wind down here and push straight up in front of your face. The ball still goes over there, you're just not following it. Okay, I hope you're smarter than the ball, because the ball's not very smart. Right? And then boom, so you're here, and so you're long in the direction of the throw with the wind. Okay? You let it come down here, and you're quick there where you're strong. Okay, that's really the basic. And what I'll do in a clinic is I'll just stand there. If you've ever done a clinic with me, or if you've ever been one of my throwers and I get in a bad mood, I make you whine. Oh man. Stuart used to make you whine for 30 minutes. Whine, whine, whine. Then you get on your knees and whine. Then you sit down and you'd still whine. Nah, don't let it hit the ground, buddy. What you do? You're not listening to me. I'm not affected at all. No, I feel pretty good, really. So anyway, I love them. Anyway, so nice and good posture, right? Good posture develops the good rhythm. Pendulum at the bottom, right in front of your feet. Right now, let's talk about, so that's the left, right, forward, and back, right? So now let's talk about up and down. Well, you know, you see all these guys, these really good guys, they come in and they just drop 180 as hard as they can. Rewatch the videos. I challenge you to take any good thrower that's thrown over 80 meters, maybe thrown over 82 meters, rewatch the video and set a line across their hips. Do they really move their hips up and down? Take a look at it. If they do, not nearly as much as you're thinking. I just watched Koji throw an 83 at 215 pounds, and his hip moved maybe an inch. We didn't try to start dropping in the direction of the throw until after I threw 82.50. Sorry, 82.52. No, 82.50. We started trying to drop before the Olympics in '96, and just a little bit, just to get a little bit of something else. Remember what I said. I didn't start trying to drop until after I'd thrown 82 meters. So you don't have to. This is why. Is all this making sense, guys? Brandon, Rob?
Yeah, you're good.
You good? Okay, so let's assume level hips. Okay, you can't quite see them. Okay, level hips. Ball's down here. Your ball's at 0, and it's down there near the ground. Okay, if I'm maintaining a static system right here, and say I'm throwing 70 meters and the ball's pulling on me about 400 pounds, right? If the ball's down there pulling on me 400 pounds and I'm staying the same, I'm pulling up on the ball. I have to, or else I'm going that way, right? Does that make sense? Yes?
Yep.
So, switch around. Now I'm up here. I'm in the direction of the throw, and I'm just getting ready to step, right? It's the same force, 400 pounds pulling, not, along my arm, so it's not pulling up and down because of the normal force. It's maybe half of that. I don't know what. Physics guys do it. But I'm still pulling, if I stay level, I'm still pulling down on the ball. Bam! I'm still pulling down on the ball. So don't move because you're already resisting the ball and you're making it go faster because you're not moving. Second, you move based on the pendulum description. Whichever direction you move toward the ball, you're slowing the ball down. You're slowing it down. You may think you're getting radius, but you're not. So you get radius by relaxing your shoulders, by the way. Relaxing here. One little really personal key that I had was I was a 3-fingered thrower, 3 and 3. And I'm fairly certain, well, part of it is because of that crazy finger right there. We did that throwing puds one year, like hammers, and I wrecked that knuckle. But it changes that little finger, leaving that out, something about the innervation or the anatomy of the shoulder and the arm lets you get longer. If you have a little finger, I feel like you just hold on a little bit more back in the back of your shoulder. If you get the 3 and 3, somehow you just go longer. That said, look at me. I got the narrowest shoulders on the earth and probably the shortest clavicles. But I'm able to be really long here. And that was one of my gifts as a thrower. But I felt more of that. Plus, the length of the little fingers, right? So if you don't have to hold clear back here, suddenly you're already gaining a half an inch. So you're gaining a half a meter on a 70-meter throw just doing that. Plus, I think it changes the innervation of the shoulder, the anatomy of the shoulder. So where are we? So back and forth, up and down. Now, rotation. If you wait for the pendulum to come down and let it go through the fast part here, right? Without doing anything to it, it's going to get faster. It's going to go whack, right? It's like a whip. It's like a fly fisherman at the top of the fly rod, and that's another example. Fly fisherman doesn't do this, right? You get a really good fly fisherman, they're just going fit, 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 and the fly's going wham, wham, right? So you don't have to move far. So you stay here and you let this thing flip through, right? And then it's just this. What? Right? I'm not turning my feet. I'm not grinding. We had a biomechanist once come to the elite clinic and say that all of the force generated in the hammer, the only way to generate force was this lever arm right here. So you had to learn to turn your feet harder. I didn't say anything during the meeting, but we spent about 3 hours in the hall talking about that. Anyway, so I'm not turning anything. I'm throwing my arm. That, if anything, is the secret of the hammer, guys. Okay? You have to be able to figure out how to do that. You have to stay in the middle, side, front, back, rotation, and you have to let this ball lead the throw. We called it using the ball. You cast it in, woo, going back to the connection with the hammer. That's the connection. So if you do that, the hammer will always come from the ball, through the wire, through your hands, up your arms, down your spine, and into the ground. And that's the path. Once you do something else, now you got something else getting in the way. You got muscles getting in the way.
So, Coach, I've got a couple of questions that have come in here. Sean's got a question. What are some key differences you think in teaching male and female throwers at the college level?
Well, with the males, it's really good. You just got to have the right tools to do the job. And so what I found with the guys is get them while they're not paying attention, like warming up or something. Sneak up behind them with a cold chisel and a ball peen, and give them a good rap right there. in my experience, women are so much easier to coach, especially in the hammer. They're better at it because it's more. They don't have testosterone poisoning. They don't. They're not as apt to just try to kill it and try to go, just go big. And I'm the worst, man. They used to accuse me of throwing as hard as I could on every single throw. And I don't know if that's true or not. It sure didn't feel like it, but my training partners, if they're watching, are laughing at me. The differences are it's just what I said before. They've got a lighter ball, so they really don't have to do these big movements for the most part. Brittany Henry throwing 70 meters at 245 pounds. Yeah, she has to look more like the quick guys. I think John Smith's watching some of his girls. They're really big and strong, and so all they really have to do is kind of find the middle and stay long. Okay, they don't have to do this super dynamic stuff and getting out of their out of a really comfortable athletic position, and it serves them really well. The guys, you just gotta relax, man. You gotta not throw as hard as you can every time, and you have to stay really focused mentally. You can't let that aggression get a hold of you, because the ball's dumb, but it is mighty, and it will crush you. It'll rip discs out of your back, especially if you're a weight thrower. It'll rip discs out of your back. It'll blow up clavicles. It'll break fingers. You just got to dance with it. You can't.
Hey, Lance, can you talk about the weight a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Speaking of things,
you yourself were always a big proponent of it.
Okay, here's the thing. So, literally, the third throw I ever threw with the weight, I threw NC2A qualifying mark. I threw 62.11. The third throw I ever picked up the weight. So it's that thing that just suits me, and I don't know why. The only thing that I can say is my concept of it is that it's a light ball. It's not a heavy ball. The physics of it is actually the forces involved once it gets moving. The rotational forces aren't as much as a 16. I don't know what they're like, but one of my training partners always thought that it was like a 4K. So, specifically, the things
you had some very big hammer years in the same year you had big weight years.
Yeah. Yeah. Robert Weir always says that if I hadn't got hurt, I would have thrown 85 meters with the weight or with the hammer, because based on how that worked. He's very analytical that way. But yeah, there's definitely a connection if you throw it like a hammer. Yeah, you can grip and rip it. And a lot of college guys have to do that because they have to make their conference championship their first year. But, Brittany Henry didn't. Brittany Henry came in and threw. She's an All-American in the weight at 145 pounds, guys. She threw.
By the way, you first said Brittany weighed 245, and
no, 145.
She's a little upset about that.
Did she say it? Did she write it down? Sorry, Brittany. Yes. 145. Brittany, now that you're here and you're communicating, what did you throw? 68.11. What did you throw in the weight? Anyway, she was an All-American in the weight at 145 pounds. So, and what we used to do was do the grip and rip it. We threw it like a hammer. That's what I did. I threw it every different way. I cast in 2 turns. I single wound 3 turns. My record was 2 winds, 4 turns. It was just like a hammer. The only thing that's really, really, really different is you have to keep it flat. At the start coming out of the winds, you have to flatten it out and keep it flat for 1 or 2 turns, because it can get steep really quickly and then you lose all your power. That's really the only difference. Otherwise, for me, it was easier because it was closer. Being a former discus thrower, I'm used to having something at the end of my hand, right? And so this big, long hammer clear out there was hard. Weight was right there. So I learned a lot of things personally. I'm not saying that everybody can, but I learned a lot of things about the hammer, about the dynamics of the hammer, using the weight because it was closer to me. I could feel it better.
And
so would you take that a step further and do, use different weighted balls with different length wires?
Absolutely. And that's classic hammer training. That's pretty standard now. I don't know how unique it was when we were doing it, but Sunday was a 12-14, Monday was 14-16-18, Wednesday was depending on the time of the year, but leading in late fall, early winter, we did 15 throws with the weight and 15 throws with some heavy thing, either usually like a meter long 20, a little bit shorter 20, and then we just repeat that. We repeat Monday and Tuesday on Thursday and Friday. It ended up about 150 throws, and I never did more except for the year. Was it 90? When did I throw 84 in the weight?
95. Well, I think 95, right?
95.
Because that was the year. That was the year. Remember, we all kind of put together a indoor circuit that you would, because there was points.
Yeah, I paid
and I think 95, because you and Kevin Toth were leading the indoor circuit until the national championships. And what I remember is then Michael Johnson broke the American record and world record at the national championships and screwed up the whole system.
So I did it. I did a big interview at Sports Illustrated the night before that meet, and I stayed with that. Merrill Noden was the guy's name. And I stayed with him for like 2.5 hours talking, and it was a great interview. And so at the end of it, he's wrapping all up. And he goes, "Well, yeah, you better throw that world record tomorrow, because if Michael Johnson does anything worth anything, this story's not going to run." And I knew that I had to throw the world record to beat him. I ended up beating him in the Grand Prix. So anyway, what was I saying about that? Oh, that was the only year that I took more than 15 throws 2 days a week in the weight, and I took 20. Mm-hmm. So we do 20 throws twice a week on the heavy day, and that was the only time. Otherwise, we just do 15. And we didn't do that all year. We didn't do it after the. We might have done some a little bit after the indoors, but we didn't do any early fall. It was really specific. And truthfully, the only reason was I came out, I was barely a 70-meter thrower, and I was throwing the weight 73. And I went to Stuart and I said, Stuart, I can win nationals and make $2,000. That's the only reason, is so I could make some money. It's the only reason he let me throw.
Talk a little bit about developing the PUDs, using the PUDs. These days is kettlebells and things like that, but people don't know about the PUDs and how they originated.
So how much time do we have, Brandon?
Probably about 5 minutes. Brandon, how are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, we can probably go another 10 minutes or so. Probably.
10 minutes.
Yeah, a little bit longer if we want.
So the PUD.
By the way, Brittany's throw is 21:32. Just so you
know. Life.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't have my calculator. Somebody doing that? 21 what? Anyway, we don't have time. So the name PUD it's Russian, and Judd used to learn all this stuff, but the way Judd remembers stuff is pretty interesting. Like our thrower, our competitor, Andrei Abduvaliev, was coming up new, and he was really good, but nobody could remember his name. And so Judd, he goes, I do believe enough. Oh, okay, it's Abduvaliev. I do believe enough. So this is how he did things, and I'm sure he still does. And the PUDs, he talked to Yuri Tam. Oh, yes, we throw the PUD. Okay, we throw PUDs, because that's the American thing. So we worked on them. We tried to figure it out. It's just kind of like a kettlebell, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't really figure out what Yuri was talking about. And so Stuart and I started building these things, and I built one, and it was too short, and we built another one, and so finally figured it out. And it's, I don't know. I used to know because I used to build them. They're maybe 13 inches long, and the weight is just a solid steel thing with a big handle. And we threw the heck out of those things. We do 50 to 100 throws twice a week after practice. And that was a big jump. I think that helped me jump into the 80s. The funny part about it is, a guy did a story on me. Jim Dunaway, a New York writer, came out, and he came to the area, and he was doing a story about us, and he looked in, and here's these things, and I told him PUDs. I told him the story about it's a Russian word, and so he sends me this thing out of a Russian English dictionary, and it's POOD, a heavy weight for throwing, usually 35 pounds.
Really?
So in sequential years, when I was just chipping away at this, big weight throws, we'd go to the big meets, and Judd and I and Sadiq and Tam would get together, and Yuri would always say something. Oh yes, we see the deal. He throws well with the weight. Yura, he throw 22. Yura, he throw 22.50 every year for like 3 years. So finally, I threw 85, 80, 25, 86, or whatever it was. We see him the next year. Yes, dear, very good result. 25 meters with the weight. We don't really throw the weight. We throw something heavier and shorter. Then you get PUD, something for throwing, usually 35 pounds. Yeah, right. I tell you, throw them all different ways. It's a way to, for kids that grew up throwing rocks, or kids that didn't grow up throwing rocks. It gives you the old man strength. It gives you the what everybody's doing with the kettlebells and the core work and the medicine ball, all this really great training that is really prevalent now that wasn't when I was coming up. It was, well, squat and bench and row. What else you need? So it's really good stuff. It's fantastic.
Sweet.
By the way, Lisa LeClaire is on listening, and I think Lisa. She's cow Carl Wallen's daughter.
Oh, okay.
And Carl was pretty much responsible for getting Stuart to come over here in the first place.
Right. Absolutely.
So just wanted to mention that.
That's great.
And she actually just asked a question of what's the best way to maximize an athlete in college who throws 3 events, and how do you maximize them in the hammer?
Think about commonalities. The other thing that's great that I see, I talked a lot about some of the weaknesses that I see in specific hammer stuff. Some of the other stuff I see is this sort of embracing of the commonalities between the events. And they're all the same. We're all human. We all act the same way. We're all strong in the same ranges. It's just figuring out how to adapt that. In fact, a good example is when I first started coaching, I was figuring out how to throw coach the rotational shot. I couldn't throw the rotational shot to save my life. And so I was talking to all these coaches. Really, it's just wonderful, wonderful people. Everybody, John Frazier and Scott Bennett and Robert Weir and now I'm going to forget him, Mark Colligan from Nebraska. So we're in at Stanford. I said, Mark, can I, because he had Myers cough and he was throwing a mile. I said, can I just talk to you about the rotation? He goes, so we went to dinner. He goes, yeah, I got my shot stuff from Stuart. It's all about pendulums. And so he got plates and saucers, and it's like, well, here's this. So here's the pendulum of the shot, and then here's the pendulum of the right leg, and here's the pendulum of and he had it all worked out based on pendulum theory. So stuff like that. I mean, the best thing is to I think, and I don't know, because I didn't have that many multiple athletes. I had a lot of javelin throwers and hammer throwers. But you got to watch your energy level. You look at somebody like Harry Mara, who coached Ashton Eaton and Breanne Tyson, and how great decathlon coaches coach their athletes. They don't spend a lot of time trying to get really, really, really specific on one thing. They're not trying to move a mountain. They're like power washing. They're just moving the system little by little, down the road. And so I think that's maybe it is if you've got a really good basic strength and fitness and coordination and flexibility and mobility program. And I should have said strength last, because I think that's the least important. Then you just apply general principles of throwing to those athletes and not burn them out. They're not, it's like a decathlete isn't 100-meter long jump, pole vault, javelin, shot, discus, 1,500 hurdles guy. I missed a couple. He's a decathlete. So all these little things, right? Parts of these little things. So a multiple thrower isn't a hammer thrower and a discus thrower and a shot putter. He's a multi-thrower, or she's a multi-thrower, right? My opinion, making it up.
Totally. And I know you're to shift gears just a little bit. I know you're making these cages now and have some projects going on. How did that come about, and what's going on with that?
I don't know. MF called me and wanted to sell some discus to Texas, and I jumped on the opportunity. And by the way, a little shout out to Rob individually and MF. They really came through in a very particular way, personally to me, as the one of the organizers of the World Junior Championships a couple of years ago. Helped us out a ton with a bunch of crazy weights of implements and that sort of stuff. So shout out to Rob and MF for being such a great part of this community. So the cages, though, it's just something I've been doing kind of forever. My first one was 2 posts and a piece of screen to keep so my college coach didn't have to hide behind my Volkswagen Squareback when I was throwing the hammer. And then it just kind of grew, and had an opportunity to design a cage for a portable cage in the discus It actually started out as hammer. Art Venegas wanted me to design a portable hammer cage for his stadium there at UCLA. Didn't quite make it right away to that. I went straight to the discus, and was able to, with some help, design something that lifts up and down and rolls around, and you can use it as a weight cage or a discus cage. Move it to the other end of the track, kind of sits on top of the ground. And then it always kept ticking at me that the hammer's a pain in the international meets, because it's on the it's got to be on the infield. There's this massive thing sitting in the middle of the infield. TV hates it. Everybody hates it. So can I make a hammer cage collapse? And it took a long time, but I figured out how to do it. And so, yeah, so that's going really well. And I think people are pretty happy with them. It feeds my creative bone. In fact, I got to run out and do some more welding right now.
Yeah. Well,
after you got three, what'd you say? You got three going up for the world championships, right? Three cages.
The hammer's on the infield, right, or the discus is on the infield for Hayward right now. I put that up a couple of weeks ago, and then the permanent Hayward cage, and then the cage. I'm building a cage for the trials and the world championships that's going out onto the infield like we did in 2016. That's the cage basically. There's a couple of improvements since then, makes it a lot easier. But that's going up for the trials and the world championships, and then I don't know why I couldn't mention the school that's buying one. Carrie Lane, Wyoming, buying one.
Wyoming,
that's awesome.
You did Wisconsin, right? You did Georgia.
Yeah, Dave's awesome at Wisconsin, and Dawn in Georgia, and Dale at Louisville. Yeah. And Blue Trick down in ASU, just put ASU's up right before as the COVID was hitting. Got out of Tempe just at the right time.
People, they should know that you actually put these up yourself.
Yeah, it's fun. I got a 20-foot flatbed to go down to 20. I should have bought one 20 years ago. It's so much fun.
Awesome. Does that seem like we don't want to hold you up too much if you do have to get to your welding? And
I got all day. If you got more questions, if people still on here and you still got bandwidth, I'm. I told you we'd do it during my nap time. My nap time.
Hey, we'll end on one short story. Tell us a short story that people might not know about you.
You can't do that. It's like, I'm going to go to the record store. I'll get all this great music. I don't know.
Where's your favorite place to throw outside of Eugene?
What
was your favorite place to throw?
It's not my favorite place to throw, I don't think. It's my favorite place for fans. That was really, it's really nice. Well, it's hometown. Everybody knows.
Yeah. So outside of there. Outside of the U.S., I should say.
So I actually just practiced this the other day with my daughter. My daughter runs she's a coach for a master's rowing program on Vashon Island, and she's doing remote workouts, and I've joined them. And one of the questions was favorite place to compete, but that was for rowing, so I don't have any of those. So Eugene for the fans, absolutely, and just the knowledge and the support. Favorite Olympics? I don't know. Olympics are hard because there's just so much other crap going on. I really liked. I like Australia. I like Sydney. The stuff around it. Of course, the meet in Atlanta was fantastic. Seoul was really busy, and I wasn't ready for that. It was tough. My first Olympics was pretty hard. Barcelona was pretty cool. But Nice is probably the Grand Prix meeting at Nice was always one of my favorites. I won it, I think, twice, maybe 3 times. I beat Sadiq there twice. It was the last place I threw 80 meters in 2000 and beat everybody. And there were some big guys there. all the new kids. So Koji was there. I beat Koji, and Gachik was back after being gone for 4 years. I beat him, and I beat the Anus, the new Hungarian, and Zsolt Nemeth, and the Germans, Weiss and Karsten Kobbs. One meet that I have good memories of is Milan, the Grand Prix final in Milan, where I threw my final American record. Just good, good feeling. It's when I, decided to, try to maybe enjoy other people's company and be friends with people. And so had good meetings with Karsten Kobbs and good talks with Heinz Weiss, the Germans.
And finally, any words of wisdom for young throwers?
Wait a minute.
Actually, young elite throwers, I should say.
Last one is Königs Wusterhausen, and that's outside of Berlin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's where I beat up on Balazs Kiss after the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I just like saying the word. It's one of my favorite words, Königs Wusterhausen. Advice for young elites: just don't quit, man. Just if you can, stay with the same coach. Stay with us. If they're worth, nobody's perfect. Stuart wasn't the best psychological coach in the world. He was the best technical coach in the world. Probably wasn't the best strength coach. He worked. We fit together. I'm a technical thrower. I look at it technically. I'm naturally strong, but I'm not a natural weightlifter. And it just worked. If you've got somebody that works for you, there are no secrets. The only secret is use the ball. Stay in the middle and use the ball. But other than that, there's no way to get there that's any better than other. You just have to get there and find somebody that's willing to commit with you and care about it as much as you do, and hopefully more, because there's days where you're not going to want to be there because everything hurts. And it's good to have somebody going, you know what? The Russians are over there doing it now, and they're doing it in snow already. Go get in there, I'll kick your teeth in. It's really good. Good to have somebody like that. In their own way. My college coach did it in a completely different way. Walk through fire for him if he asked me to.
Awesome. It might always good to end it on a laugh. That was great, and I appreciate you being so generous with your time. It's great to hear from you and have a laugh doing it and hear some great insight. One housekeeping item I will say is for anybody out there, if you help us get the word out here, there's things in it for you. Rob and MF are giving away two $50 gift cards for people that have helped share the word. So Jay Smith and Natalia Salivia, you guys are our winners for this week, and thanks for tuning in, and thank you so much, Coach Deal and Rob, and this has been really fun.
And I apologize if I offended anybody.
No. You didn't offend anybody. No. Except when you said that Brittany was 245.
Yes. Right.
Hey, Lance, thanks for everything. This was great.
Awesome.
You guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Bye.